Hi, welcome to the River Ceramics Studio. Today I'm going to take you through how I attach a handle to a mug.
First of all, what we're going to need is your mug clay body, a pre-made handle. This is one that I've used a pulling method to make and then had sitting for just a little while so there's rigidity but not too much stiffness. I've got my jar of vinegar, just a cheap vinegar is fine, a cleaning vinegar. I've got a regular little pottery knife, a toothbrush, and some sort of profile of shaping tool, just a cheap timber one that I use. I've got lots of different profiles, and having this round end is helpful to me. And now with the mug, what I'll do is kind of do a little bit of a measure out to make sure that my size is about right. So I'll begin by cutting this top end at an angle, putting it aside, and then measuring out to see that that's the shape that I like. So knowing that that's about the right size, I'll give it a little zhuzh now, and then cut this one on the angle as well. I want to have lots of surface area to join, which is why I try and avoid the butt joining, whereas I want a really nice long surface area. So now, another little tool that I actually really love to use, you can just use a needle tool or something like that, but I actually love this one, which I call the Wolverine, because it demonstrates it can just come out like this, like a little claw. It gives you a really good deep cross hatching opportunity like that, but you can do it with a needle tool as well. So I do a nice deep groove there, and then I'm going to place this in the right position, however you like it. I'm just going to gently mark it there and there, and then do that same cross hatching on my mug. So both parts of the attachment need to be deeply grooved, and that allows for the clay to join and adhere together. Now I'm going to dip my toothbrush in the vinegar, tap out most of the liquid so that I don't want it like running, because this really softens the clay particles. Do the same thing on both sides, and that creates a bit of a clay slip. The idea is that you rough it, you create a slip, and then you wiggle it on until you don't get much movement anymore. Because what we want is a really strong join. The last thing I want is for people to use my mugs and for the handle to fail. That would be terrible. So now I have a look from a vertical position and make sure that the handle's not on an angle. That used to happen to me a lot when I started this whole process, but now I've learned to make sure. The other thing to make sure is that your cup is still round here. Something I see a lot in beginners is that this is a little bit too soft and gets pushed in when they've put their handle on. So just check that it's nice and smooth. So first I do a preliminary adhesion just by hand. There's a little bit of softness there because of the vinegar. And then just for extra strength, I'm going to get my little offcut and make a little tiny little sausage. And I'm just going to run that over that join there and over that join there and around the sides a little bit and put that to the side. This just gives an extra assurance that you're going to have a strong hold. Sometimes I'll dip, if it's really dry, I'll dip a little bit of extra vinegar. I'm not a fan of a lot of extra liquid when we're doing ceramics, but just a tiny bit, just to make sure that you get a really nice smooth blended join. So I'm just being quite rough but very thorough to make sure clay is going in both directions. And then the same down here. Making sure that the clay is going both onto the mug and onto the handle. Okay, so that now is a really good rock solid join. A really key piece of information is to make sure that both pieces of clay are a similar level of dryness. You really don't want one handle, for example, that's really moist going onto a really dry clay body, because then there's much higher chance that there's going to be a separation in the two. And also you really don't want them to be too dry. It's hard in this Australian warm weather. At this time of year, I have to be so careful to keep everything covered in plastic until I'm literally about to make the join, because they can just get too dry too quickly. So now I'm using my sponge to just clean up that join, make it nice and smooth. That's just the style of design that I do. Some people like to leave maker's marks, and that's absolutely fine. I prefer a nice smooth finish. And then just finish it off by hand, do a final check, make sure that everything has stayed where I want it to. And there we have a finished mug.